Greetings and welcome to Science Meets Vedanta, a platform dedicated to uncovering the core principles of Vedanta and highlighting the intriguing connections between contemporary science and timeless wisdom. I am Jayant Kapatkar, author of the book Science Meets Vedanta. Each week, inspired by insights from my book, we'll delve into a range of engaging topics at the intersection of these fields. I invite you to join us on this illuminating journey. In this episode, we explore a simple but profound question: who is truly seeing, hearing, feeling, and experiencing the world around us? At first, it appears that the ego is the observer of all experiences. But Vedanta invites us to look deeper and discover that the true observer is not the ego. By understanding the difference between the observer and the ego, we can gain a clearer insight into how experience and self identity unfold within us. Introduction. Who is seeing the tree? And in the same way, who is listening to the music? Who is tasting the ice cream? Who smells the fragrance of the rose? Who is feeling the coolness of the air? Throughout the day, we pass through countless such experiences. It appears there is an observer within us, a silent witness present behind every experience. This observer is the seer of the tree, the listener of the music, the taster of the ice cream, the one who smells the rose, and the one who feels the coolness of the air. Decoding the observer. Have you noticed that this observer appears to be a complex entity playing many different roles? 1. When it sees the tree, it becomes the seer of the tree. 2. When it listens to music, it becomes the listener of the music. 3. When it tastes the ice cream, it becomes the taster of ice cream. 4. When it smells the rose, it becomes the smeller of the rose. 5. When it feels the coolness of the air, it becomes the feeler of the cool air. This list can go on and on. What a multifaceted and varied entity this observer appears to be. There is one observer within us, yet it seems to assume many roles: seer, listener, taster, smeller, feeler, and countless others. The observer appears dynamic, changing its role from moment to moment throughout the day. In one moment, it is the seer of a tree. In the next, it is the listener of music. Then it may become the seer of the car ahead, followed by the smeller of a passerby's perfume. With every change in experience, the observer seems to take on a new role. Its profile appears to shift so rapidly that it is impossible to know how many times this change occurs in a single day. It is truly remarkable. From this discussion, it does seem that the observer is a powerful and dynamic presence within us. It is worth pausing to contemplate this remarkable entity that silently accompanies every experience. Who is the observer? So, who is this observer? The most natural answer seems to be, I am this observer. After all, it is I who is seeing the tree, listening to the music, or tasting the ice cream. This is how we experience life every moment, and there is no denying this feeling. Throughout our lives, we have been quite certain that we are the observer of all our experiences. This then raises the next question: who is this I am? The most likely answer is that the I am is the ego. We all have a distinct feeling of I am, and ego is another name for this sense of I am. Therefore, we usually assume that this ego is the observer of all experiences. If the ego is truly the observer of all experiences, then an important question arises. Where does the ego get the power to observe? How does it become the seer, listener, taster, smeller, and feeler of all experiences? Are these powers inherent in ego, or does the ego depend on something beyond itself? Observer and ego. There is also another possibility. The observer and the ego may be two separate entities. The observer is a powerful and dynamic presence that witnesses all experiences. The ego, on the other hand, is our personality profile. All our desires, along with our positive and negative personality traits, make up the ego. From this understanding, it appears that being the observer or witness of experiences is not actually one of the ego's functions. Unfortunately, the idea that the ego or the sense of I am is the observer is deeply rooted within us. Separating the I am, the ego, from the true observer is not easy. Much greater clarity and understanding are required on this subtle topic. The focus here is to clarify the difference between the observer and the ego. By understanding this distinction, we can better appreciate who truly sees the tree and what role the ego plays in this process. Observer and awareness. The observer is an essential aspect of awareness. Whenever we are aware of an object, there must be an observer who's aware of it. Without the observer, there can be no awareness, because there would be no witness to the object. In this sense, the observer is a critical part of awareness. If you have time, you must listen to the episode Understanding Awareness, where we discuss the different aspects and the powers inherent within awareness. Understanding the power of the knower. Power of the knower, which is part of awareness, which enables the observer to function. The power of the knower allows the observer to become the seer, listener, smeller, feeler, and taster. It is this power that enables awareness to appear as the observer in each moment of experience. For example, when there is a tree before us, how do we witness it? This is a basic and fundamental question. The ability to see the tree or any other external object already exists within awareness. The power of seeing is part of awareness itself. The power of the knower activates this power so that in that moment, awareness functions as the seer of the tree. In the next moment, we may be listening to music. Now the power of the knower activates the power of listening within awareness, and awareness functions as the listener of the music. In this way, awareness becomes the witness or the observer of every kind of experience. We can therefore appreciate this power of awareness because it is through the power of the knower that we are able to witness the world around us. Ego and awareness. The real self is awareness, and awareness is the real self. Unfortunately, we have forgotten this real self. The moment this forgetfulness occurs, a veil of ignorance appears to cover the real self. By concealing the true identity of the real self, ignorance gives rise to a new entity, the ego. This ego then masquerades as the real self. In truth, however, it is only a thought, like any other thought that arises in the mind. It may be difficult to accept that the ego is merely a thought wave, which behaves as though it is the real self. We have already seen that the observer and the power of the knower are integral aspects of awareness. This helps us understand the distinction more clearly. The observer belongs to awareness, while the ego arises from ignorance. They are therefore two separate entities. It should be clear that the ego is not the observer. We witness the world around us because of the observer within awareness, not because of the ego. Yet do we experience it this way? Usually the answer is no. We tend to feel that we ourselves are the observer and that the ego is the one witnessing everything. This assumption is deeply rooted within us, and it is difficult to think otherwise. The question then is this: if the ego is not the observer, why do we feel that it is? As mentioned earlier, the ego masquerades as the real self and believes itself to be the real self. Because of this mistaken identity, it appears to capture and take over the role of the observer. Strangely, it seems as though the observer does not resist this takeover. It appears to allow the ego to assume this role. Perhaps this is how nature has arranged the play of experience. For this reason, it seems to us that the ego is the observer. Technically, however, the observer is part of awareness, while the ego is a separate entity arising from ignorance. The role of ego. What then is the role of the ego? The mind contains countless experiences, and the ego continuously interacts with them. In fact, the ego cannot remain still. Whenever an experience arises, the ego responds in some way. It either likes the experience or dislikes it. It is either attracted to the experience or repelled by it. This movement of like and dislike is the ego's natural response to every experience. In responding this way, the ego modifies the experience. This modification itself becomes an action undertaken by ego. There is a simple rule: every action must produce a result. Since the action was done by the ego, it must receive the result of its action. According to the doctrine of karma, if the modification is positive, the result for the ego is favorable. If the modification is negative, the ego must experience an unfavorable result. Let us look at a few examples to make this point clearer. 1. Many people think that talking itself is karma. This is not correct. Talking is natural. It is a standard function of the human body. The body is meant to speak. However, when we speak positively or negatively about someone, the ego has entered the action. Then the speech becomes good or bad karma. 2. Walking is also a natural action. There is no karma simply in walking. However, while walking, if we see an insect and intentionally crush it underfoot, that deliberate act becomes karma. On the other hand, if an insect comes under our foot without our knowledge, it is not karma in the same sense, because the ego was not involved through intention. 3. If we have ears, we are naturally going to hear sounds. For example, if we listen indifferently to the chatter around us in an airport lounge, that is not karma. It is simply hearing. But if we become irritated by the noise and react inwardly with dislike, then the ego has modified the experience, and that reaction becomes karma. 4. Seeing the physical world is natural. If we are standing in front of several people, we cannot simply decide not to see them. Seeing happens naturally, and we have no power to stop it. However, if we judge what we see, thinking, for example, what a horrible shirt or how nice this person looks, then the ego has added judgment to the experience. These judgments become karma. From this discussion, we can see that ego's primary role is to engage with our daily experiences by reacting to them through likes, dislikes, judgments, and intentions. Conclusion. In conclusion, the true observer is not the ego, but an essential aspect of awareness. Awareness, through the power of the knower, becomes the witness of every experience. The ego, however, mistakenly assumes this role and creates the impression that it is the one seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing. Its real function is to react to experiences through likes and dislikes, and these reactions become the basis of karma. By understanding this distinction, we begin to see more clearly that the witness within us belongs to awareness, while the ego merely adds ownership and judgment to experience. If you are interested in delving deeper into topics like this, we invite you to discover more in my book, Science Meets Vedanta, available on Amazon. Additionally, we now have a library of around 40 podcasts covering many different topics. Feel free to browse through them at your convenience. If you enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to share it with your family and friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an upcoming episode.